install an off-grid system, you're married to it life. You become the utility. So there's a lot of installers that do off-grid systems maybe one a year and those sorts of things, and they may struggle when it comes to servicing those products in 4 or 5 years' time. But then you have the people that are regular off-grid installers, and they enjoy it because they do know their clients, and it's probably how you should be if you're going to be an off-grid installer. XESS is we're predominantly a battery and inverter brand is what we are. Really just plug and play. It's, bolted on the wall, slot everything in, connect to the Wi-Fi app in a sense, and you've got 5 questions to answer for programming.
Just sat down with Craig Hunter from XESS Energy. Now, this man has been involved in renewables for 25 years. He started off winding transformers. He worked for Selectronic, a famous Australian company that makes off-grid inverters, and also has worked in manufacturing in various other industries. Currently has his own business. He has a unique perspective when it comes to battery storage, especially from a domestic and also commercial perspective. So do yourself a favour. Sit yourself down, strap yourself in, and be prepared for an interesting podcast. Look, Craig, so we were talking off camera before. You nearly didn't come in today because you had a trip to China planned. So tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
It just sort of came up, as you do with the travelling and that sort of stuff. Business partner Peter Watkinson sort of said, look, we're heading to China. I've already booked my flight. I need you to book your flight so that we can both go, because it's pretty important that I go as well to build those relationships with some of our partners over there. And he basically said, look, we're leaving on the 2nd. And I'm like, hang on a minute. I've got a podcast pretty planned for the 2nd. And he just sort of said, see what you can do. And we had a look into it. And the 3rd worked out just as well. So, yeah. So finished with you guys today.
And then you'll be home packing your
I've already packed, ready to go. I'm going to stay close to the airport tonight. My flight's at 8 o'clock in the morning. Got to be there 3 hours before. So I'm just going to stay at the airport.
Wow.
And head across nice and easy in the morning. So
nice. Now, a little bit, I said I wouldn't introduce Craig, and I'm sort of not going to now, but I've known Craig for a very long time. Not really that well, but enough to know that he's been ahead in the industry for, well, it says on LinkedIn 20 years. Is that a correct assessment?
1998 is when I first started in a company in the industry, in a sense. And
well, that's more than 20.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so I guess roughly 25 years. If you sort of say first couple of years, I wasn't really playing outside the business in a sense. So, yeah.
Wow. Now, you grew up in Melbourne, or I assume?
I was born in the UK.
I'm getting it right.
Yeah. But grew up in Melbourne.
I'll start again. Yeah. So you grew up in the UK? Sorry, mate.
That's all right. No, I was born in the UK, moved over here when I was 11 with my dad, who married an Australian lady, and moved over here, spent glorious 5 years of my life here, growing up in Bronia. If anybody's from Melbourne, you might know where that is.
Yep.
Great place. And then went back to the UK for 6 months, and then sort of came back over here with my older brother. And then over time, slowly the rest of my family came back over again. So, but spent a lot of time in Australia. It's a great place to live. I think there's great opportunity for anybody. If anybody's listening outside of Australia, there's a great opportunity for anybody over here. So.
Now, what have you been back to England?
Yeah, I went back. Last time I went back is in 2000. I actually plan on going back in this year.
Yeah, wow.
Have a lot of our family that have come over here to see us in a sense. But I think that it's my turn now to sort of go back and see them. So
it's a long flight though, isn't it?
That is the biggest thing. The flights are long, and because you're flying for such a long distance, you want to make the most of it. So it's not a 2-week holiday that you want to do. It's let's do it for 5 to 10 weeks or something like that.
And you're going to stay. You're going to stay a fair time.
Look, I hope to, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay that long. But at least stay for at least the 4 weeks, or something like that. So
they're going through a bit of turmoil in England at the moment, aren't they? There seems to be. And I'll sort of take my Greenwood hat off a little bit as much as I can. There seems to be a lot of erosion of civil liberties and stuff like that. Do you know anything about that? Or
yeah, look, I don't really look into it from the outside looking in. I think that it's happening in a lot of Western countries around the world. I think it's the identity of the countries are being lost through whatever reasons that is. But the actual identities of the countries are being lost. So what does it mean to be a person from the UK, and what does the UK represent, and how does it, picture itself to the rest of the world, to the Western world looking at it, like what's the UK look from the outside in. And I think a lot of Western countries are losing their identity at the moment. I think that's what a lot of it is.
Do you think that's a consequence of this whole globalization? I mean,
massively, yes.
Yeah.
Globalization is, of course, if you become one globe and you're all the same and you're all doing the same thing, you're not really different anymore. So is it a problem going to that step over the next 1,000 years or however long it takes? Don't think so. But there's going to be lots of ups and downs along the way where people are proud to be British, or people are proud to be Australian, or people are proud to be whatever country you come from, usually proud to be a part of that country. And when things change because of globalization, whether that's all of a sudden we can't manufacture this anymore, or we're now becoming a multicultural society, so there's a change to what the local shops look like and those sorts of things. I think it's going to be a lot of turmoil on that sort of side of it.
It's going to be it's a real balancing act to maintain a cultural identity, because we are in this global world where at the flick of a switch you're seeing information you're getting information instantaneously. You can trade with anyone around the world, depending on the price, of course, and the tariffs. So we are living in really interesting times. And that leads me to the question, we're living in interesting times, and we're certainly living in interesting times when it comes to renewable energy, what seems.
Yeah, we are. Like renewables, especially in countries that are embracing it, Australia, parts of Europe, Asia, China, and those sorts of things that are embracing it. Definitely interesting times. Renewables makes sense. It has for a lot of years. I think now it's being accepted as a proper player in the market. However, it's constantly changing, and that's probably one of the things that keeps me interested in staying in this industry. So,
yeah, we were talking a little bit before off camera about the whole FCAS and arbitrage, and FCAS is obviously an acronym that we'll talk about later on. And what we're effectively talking about is energy storage and how it relates to the main renewable, which seems to be solar. Obviously, wind plays a role and hydro, but solar seems to be the main one. So I always say, thank God we were involved in this industry, because it is so damn interesting.
Changes every second. We've just and they announced a rebate for the battery side of things 6 months ago, and then they change it. We had a plan on how it was going to phase out over 5 years, and then they make a change at the last minute at the end of last year because it's so hot. Everybody's putting it in, so they're just trying to slow it down a little bit to make it more manageable and being distributed over larger areas rather than concentrated in large systems. We now have medium-sized systems around the whole country. So, yeah, it's an interesting place. So you think you're sort of doing things right, and as a manufacturer, you do your pipeline and order your parts according to how the rebate's rolling out, and then they make a change, and you go, oh shit, and you make
literally,
and you make some more changes. So.
Yeah, wow. It really seems, and I've been involved for a long time in this industry. You've even longer. So we've seen everything. We've seen when panels were $10 a watt, the changes in governments, the rebates, the John Howard era where there was that $8,000 rebate and everyone's whacking in these 1 kilowatt systems, and the feed-in tariff was huge. And it's such an interesting area, and you're right. It changes so radically, and you have to be very agile with your approach to business. Now, we'll get into that later on. I want to jump back a bit chronologically.
Yeah, that's fine.
So you've come out from England. When did you start thinking that when did you develop an interest in renewables? And I know you did you did a diploma in electronics.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about that subject and how it led on to the whole renewable side of things?
I've always had a little bit of a green thumb, not as in the way as, a tree hugger and that sort of stuff, because things have to happen, so you can't protect every tree in every environment. I've always been a responsible thinker, so just think before you do things, and is it the right thing to do, and is it sustainable? And when I moved here from England the second time, basically with my older brother, him and one of my mates was working at, and we were share house living together, working at a company called Selectronic. So I sort of had a look at them, and I noticed they did inverters and that side of things, and they were running transformers, and it was in the renewable space, and back then it was battery storage, and there was probably a whole 1,000 systems out there that probably had batteries connected to them, apart from, of course, commercial sort of stuff with Telstra and that. We've talked mums and dads. Excuse me. And it just seemed exciting. They were sort of seemed progressive as a company. They were winding transformers, which I thought was quite interesting, and yeah, they were working there. I went for a job interview, got the job, and lo and behold, I ended up in this industry. And it was good because I was working on and off with probably about 5 to 8 of my mates in Selectronic for the first 2 years that we were there, and it was good fun. Like actually working there and being involved in manufacturing and being listened to. Like you make suggestions on how to improve the manufacturing flow and how things work, and you'll be listened to and embraced. And it was a great company to work for. So next thing you know, I'm selling inverters, and away you go.
Are you like you mentioned about how the manufacturing process goes and that they listen to advice from the people who work there? Are you like process and procedure driven as a person?
Massively.
Yeah, right.
So I'm systematic in the way I do things. Like even when you go on holiday, you've got to plan it. You've got to have everything set. You've got to have your little books and those sorts of things. Not really sort of like over the top, but you need to have a process and a flow on how things to work. So if you have a bottleneck, how do you get over a bottleneck? Sometimes it might be slow it down up here. It might be speed it up there. But it's about having a process and a procedure on how to do things.
You'd love spreadsheets too, wouldn't you?
Don't love them, but you have to have them.
I'll rephrase that. So you see the value in spreadsheets.
Oh, yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, I say I actually love them. I think Excel is a wonderful tool, and I was never process and procedure driven until I stuffed up badly managing a few projects, and financially I made a big mistake many years ago, and then I finally listened to my wife and said, yeah, right, I'm going to be much more systematic. So it was a learned process for me. But that leads me to this question, which I ask all of our guests. Your process and procedure driven personality, is it nature or nurture?
Oh, that's a hard question.
I know.
It'll have to be nature, because I think it's who you are as a person. I think that certain people can just go through life, I say erratic, but it's not really erratic, but just they go through life and it just happens. Whereas some people, I think they need to not plan their life full out, but you've got to plan where you're at to get to where you got to go to. So if you have a goal, and your goal might be to go on holiday at the end of the year, and we're going to, I don't know, a big European trip that's going to cost you $30,000, and you're taking the kids and whatever, you've got to take time off work. You've got to be able to plan for that. Right. So you have to have a process and a procedure to get there. Yes, to a degree.
Yes.
So,
and were you like that as a kid?
Not 100%, but I was a Boy Scout when I was younger, so there was lots of drive to learn, and there was lots of rules and regulations and the badges. You've got to be able to get the badges and those sorts of things and stuff like that. And the biggest thing I liked about Scouts was the camping and those sorts of things. But there's always a process and a procedure in those sorts of things. So
I think, and we'll lead into this later on. You're running your own business. You need these skills. You cannot be running your own business without some semblance of process and procedure and structure. I mean, if you did, it wouldn't last very long.
No, it wouldn't. You need to be systematic and know where everything sits and know how everything operates and know everybody's roles and responsibilities. And if you don't know the roles and responsibilities, you're not probably going to get anywhere. You start stepping on each other's toes. So
now the Selectronic, you were there for how long?
My first stint at Selectronic, I was there for 12 years.
Hang on. Did you? So you've had
I've had 2 stints at Selectronic, yeah.
Sounds like you're in jail. 2 stints in Selectronics. That's funny. Go, please.
Yeah, so it was 12 years. I started not straight out of school. I started to do my carpentry apprenticeship for a little while and did a few other things, cabinet making and stuff. But I guess the start of my career started at Selectronic, on the floor, winding transformers originally. Then I started getting interested in more about what does a transformer do? How does it operate? Where does it sit in electronics?
All right.
Did my certificate 2 in electronics while I was at Selectronic as well. They embraced that, and then started learning how to test and design the transformers and then write the production documentation. So that was me for the first sort of 3 years at Selectronic.
I never realised that, way back then. I didn't realise you had that background. That's amazing.
Yeah, so then after that, I got into selling transformers, and naturally, once you're selling transformers, you're a part of the sales team. You start assisting with selling inverters, and then slowly they phased out the active role of a BDM for transformers. They would just sell themselves as they were winding that part of the business down, and I was moved across into the inverter side of the business with our mate Lindsay Hart, of course. Originally, it was Ralph Taylor, which was one of the brother-in-laws, I guess, of the Selectronic family. One of the brothers of the Selectronic family. He was my boss, direct boss. Then Lindsay Hart came back to the business. That was his third stint, I think, at Selectronic then. Came back to the business, and he was my direct boss for 7 years or so. And we worked as a team, doing training, running the sales team. And that was my life at Selectronic. Got
Big shout out to Lindsay. Lindsay's a bit of a legend. He's definitely a legend, and he's been involved in the industry for so long, and he walks the walk and talks the talk, doesn't he? Like he's totally off grid, isn't he?
He's totally off grid. He's lives on a little farm sort of property, a few acres and that side of it. I think he's had many a power system go in and out of there for testing. I think he's on his second set of lithium-ion batteries in there now.
Whoa.
I think so,
he must be flocking. We will talk about. Obviously, we'll be talking about batteries in detail. The whole thing, this process and procedure, and I want to stick with that a little bit. It also ties in with that attention to detail. Like I assume that winding transformers, you have to be pretty bloody precise, don't you?
You do. You have to be quick with your hands when you're high-speed winding. I know that much.
Right.
Get caught a few times. But the machines sort of operate themselves to a degree. You're winding wire onto them and they count the turns and stop. But when you're high-speed winding, you need to be able to set the machine so that they stop before the turns are finished. So you might need 1,000 turns. But because it's moving at such velocity, you want it to just stop. And then the last turn, as it slows down, the last turn comes on, and you might have to hand wind one turn on there. But yeah, the toroidal transformer moves around. There's all sorts of different types of transformers to build, from large toroidal transformers that you're probably used to in low-frequency inverter technology, right through to high-frequency ones, which are more your bobbin-wound sort of style transformers with a ferrite core rather than an iron core. So
it still fascinates me that some wire and some metal can produce some. Yeah, it's still it's magic, isn't it? Really?
I think it is. I mean, it's just magnetizing, really, and based on big words, flux densities, and all those sorts of things, and your inductances and your capacitance and your resistance in it. It does certain things and can be used in certain applications.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. So obviously, Selectronic is an inverter charger. They still are, and it's obviously the fit with the Selectronic product. And I always used to say Selectronics, and I used to get castigated.
Everybody put the S on the end.
Reason. And I know Hayden he used to tease me about that. And also, way before that, Hayden was there for a little while as well. Hayden Fletcher, who's actually coming on the podcast pretty soon. But they have this intrinsic relationship with energy storage. Is that where you started to get a little bit interested in energy storage yourself? Like, or was it more the transformers, the processes and procedures there at Selectronic?
I think it was the application of battery storage is what I enjoyed. It was different to your mainstream. So my family, my dad's was a carpenter. My mum worked at a chemist. My mates were in all different types of things, and it was something different. But what I liked about it is, at the time, battery storage wasn't huge in the mums and dads realms. And usually when a system was being put in, it was to give them a lifestyle. So you were actually giving them a benefit and it was like a feel-good approach.
Yes.
So where are these systems going and who are they going into? And when you went out to some of these sites with some of the installers and just saw how archaic it was back then and how far we've come today. But just, you're in the raw outback bush, and I love the outback side of things, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, and there was big clunky single-cylinder diesel generators clanking away.
Yeah.
And then they put a power system in, and all of a sudden the generator's not running anymore. They've got lights and it's quiet. I think that whole aspect of it was just really great. And it was also doing it with doing minimal damage to the environment around you. I mean, I know there's damage in manufacturing something, raw materials and that side of things, but there was no pulling down trees to put power lines in and those sorts of things. And it gave people the ability freedom to live in the middle of nowhere, being not isolated, but in an environment where you are one with nature and everything else around you, rather than living in suburbia where I live now, and you could smell the people's cooking next door, and you get the annoyance of everybody else around you. So
that's a really interesting point, and I'd like to add too that from an installer's perspective and the customer's perspective, it's a completely different relationship with the customer when you're doing something off grid.
Yeah,
because you're providing energy. That's the only option. Putting batteries or solar on someone who's connected to the grid is a completely different. It's a different set of circumstances, and it's a different relationship. And I know, like when I was working with Harmonic Energy, we were doing a lot of off grid. We always used the Selectronic product. We saw all the iterations, and I also saw the iterations too when I was at McFarlane Generators when Robin Webb. What was it?
Robert Webb.
Robert Webb came in with this ute full of these inverter chargers. Said, I want to test out your worst generators. I don't care how dirty they are. But I think it's a really important point to make when you are providing a product for primarily back then for off grid. It's a completely different. It's a different relationship. It's you get to know the actual client a lot more deeply. Would that be fair?
Look, yeah, definitely.
I know you're coming from you were coming from a manufacturer's perspective, but you have Selectronic always had a very close relationship with their installers too, with the installers that use the product.
Yeah, that's what you don't have as much close relationship with the end consumer, of course, but you do through when they repurchase the product. So they would generally repurchase your product for valid reasons. It's either they had a great experience, the installer's still recommending it, or it's the fact that your product has lasted so long and it was foolproof to as much as a product can be foolproof over a long period of time that they will rebuy your product. With installers, if you install an off-grid system, you're married to it for life. You become the utility. So there's a lot of installers that do off-grid systems maybe one a year and those sorts of things, and they may struggle when it comes to servicing those products in 4 or 5 years' time, when they've got to go back and maybe remember exactly what it was, or go out 12 hours to go and deal with on a Sunday to go and deal with this system.
Yes.
And then you have the people that are regular off-grid installers, and they enjoy it because they do know their clients. They do embrace their clients. Their clients are constantly either contacting them because they want an upgrade, or they've got a little bit of an issue and they've got to go sort it out, or generators aren't working, and those sorts of things. And you're married to the customer long term, and it's probably how you should be if you're going to be an off-grid installer, is to be able to be married to the client to offer the service so that they have a great experience. Because if they don't have a great experience, they're only just going to badmouth you in the product.
Absolutely. That's the thing, isn't it? Their system, the whole system is based on what's been provided. There's no grid. If something goes wrong, not only are they pissed off, suddenly that 300-litre chest freezer with a couple of animals that have been killed the month before starts going off. You're going to hear about it. Now, let's talk about the company. And look, after Selectronic, you moved. Was it to Power Plus? Was it?
I moved to Solar Inverter Services, which was then SI Clean Energy. The guys in Coffs Harbour.
Yes.
So I moved to those guys for a while. We were doing distribution of Power One inverters, which then became ABB, which
the
then
Auroras.
FEMA. Yeah. So we were doing distribution of those inverters, and Kyocera and a few other brands, and Selectronic as well. Yeah, they were. I mean, they sold a lot of them.
They did.
Containers and containers went through out the door back in
really
the day.
Thin, they were really quite low profile. Yeah,
that's their indoor model. Yeah, so
wow.
But yeah, and then I went to Selectronic, back to Selectronic for another 3 years. After that, so 6 years at SI Clean Energy, back to Selectronic for 3 years, and sort of jumped back on the team with Lindsay again, and we ran around the country for 3 years training people on the Selectronic SB Pro, and had an absolute ball. An opportunity came back up at Power Plus, so I went to Power Plus, the battery manufacturer in Australia, and went to those guys for 5 years and helped them.
You were there for 5. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was there in the early days when I think there was probably about 8 employees on the floor, and it was mainly Bradley Payton's sons, kids, and a few people from the local church and stuff like that.
Wow.
And I came on board as their BDM, and then slowly got into the tech, and then you start running a team of people and assisting with the whole sort of setup and the way things go as a business grows, and experienced a great ship that's sailing now sort of thing from a little tugboat when I got on there, came aboard, and it's now was in the peak of it, I think, employing, over 50 to 60 people, and, and doing what they do today.
Now, so you've had this, your employment was you were employed. And it's different from being an employer, which is what you are now. What made you? Was it always there that you think I'm going to have my own business one day?
Yes, probably. I'm not a control freak, but I like to be in control of ideas, I guess. Not as in control where your idea has to go, but at least being able to coerce that ship or guide that ship in where it's got to go. And when you work for other people, regardless of how big they are or small they are, your idea is an idea, and sometimes they get pushed to the side, or sometimes you don't have an opportunity to deal with it. But if you're not in the whole decision-making process, and then you've still got to deal with that, whatever's been implemented, I don't think you embrace it as much as what you should do. I'm not saying that you don't give it the power it's got to be given, because that's your job and it's what you've got to do. But I think that when you're in control of, not control, but as a part of the upper team that's making these decisions, I think that you're empowered more to make it work.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
And I think that I enjoy the challenge. When I work for other businesses, I work for them like they're my own. You know, you put in a stupid amount of hours and have so much as a responsibility and the same stress. It was, for years, I was thinking I should do something myself, because I'm not going to be any worse off mentally and physically.
Yeah, right.
So why not
I love the
do
logic.
something yourself?
Yeah, because you're going in 100%, whether it's your own business or you're being employed. So it makes logical sense. Well, hang on. I'm working the same intensity. I've got a heck of a lot more control because it's mine. And hopefully you're making better money than wages, because that's one of the main reasons people go into business.
Yeah.
How's it going so far? And please tell us about the company. Tell us about the name of the company, who you're involved with, and how it all came about. Because these things just don't happen overnight, do they?
No, they don't. XESS is we're predominantly a battery and inverter brand is what we are. It's a partnership between two people, I guess, or two companies. There's AERL, which is Australian Energy Research Labs, which is a 40-year-old company in Australia, developed a maximum power point tracking technology. They're based in Brisbane, and the director there is Peter Watkinson. And when I left Power Plus, I went and worked for a company called Evo for a little while with Jamie Allen. Known him for many a year. Went and worked with those guys for a while. Well, I was really trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. I wanted to move up into the upper leadership roles and those sorts of things. And I had a phone call from Peter Watkinson one day. We had an idea, and this is where he wants to go. And it was the same way I was thinking about doing. So I was already thinking about getting products, branding them yourself, creating a brand in a sense, at that side of it. And Peter was already sort of 30% down the track of where we were still going. And it sort of made sense for us to partner up to develop the brand and go from there. And it was a sort of a discussion that would happen in 12 months or so, those sorts of things and that, but just happened faster than it was supposed to.
Wow.
6 months later, here I am. We started XESS in 2023. So it's now been
nearly 3
years old.
Wow.
And it started originally on inverter technology, so the ability in off-grid to do modular technology. So
explain that to the...
So off-grid, depending on your budget, but realistically off-grid needs to be mission critical. Power is an essential service. And when the lights go out, how long are they going to take to come back on? If you live on the grid, the power company automatically turns it back on. You get an SMS saying it's going to be on in half an hour, 3 hours, and away you go. When you're off-grid, it's down to what has actually gone wrong. How long is my installer going to take to get there? Does he have a response time of 1 day, 2 days, 3 weeks? Am I isolated? So the idea of the XESS brand was to bring a high level of redundancy into the products and the solutions that we were selling. So they started with the inverter technology. So the inverter technology, we went with the XS1, and that's a wall-mounted modular inverter. So essentially it has up to 4 battery inverter chargers inside it and 2 MPPTs. You can have up to 2 MPPTs. But what it gives is if one inverter chooses not to play game and operate, in a sense, the other 3 would still operate. So rather than if one of your inverter technologies has an issue, rather than the lights going out, you just have reduced capacity. Whereas a lot of systems, they would have one inverter of one size being, say, 7 kilowatts.
And no plan B.
No plan B.
Wow.
And there was also the talk of, AC coupling is very, very popular. And there's a couple of reasons why. It's the same way to install as you do grid connect, high voltage PV, and the way you go.
Yep.
generally speaking, it means that you can get local sparkies to install that side of it. And yeah, you can have high penetration of it. We opted for DC coupling because DC coupling gives you a couple of extra benefits. One, you can probably go with smaller MPPTs and have a level of modularity in there. But the MPPT is the thing that's now charging your battery.
Yes.
And what I've noticed in my experience over working with Selectronic and a Power Plus is when you have a AC coupled system, you're communicating with another inverter. The main inverter is communicating with another inverter.
That's right.
Inverter. So if you have a high penetration of PV, maybe a slightly lower capacity of battery, but your batteries are full and there's a high load on, so the AC coupled inverter is now powering the load. When the battery inverter says, I don't need that energy anymore because the load's turned off, and it tells it to back off, whether that's with frequency or whether that's with controlled comms, there's a time delay on that inverter backing off, and that energy has to go somewhere. And what happens is it shunts through the battery inverter and into the battery because it needs to go somewhere.
Yes.
And a couple of things happen. Either the battery can absorb it, but it may have some high ripple voltages on it, maybe it absorbs it, or the voltage goes high and the system shuts down. So you have an instability issue there. So we went with DC coupling because when you have a direct coupled MPPT on a battery, they respond a lot faster. So rather than waiting for a response, they respond faster. So there's a couple of benefits. You don't have the high, the instability of voltage for performance, as in the system shutting down. But if you look at the batteries when they're being charged, you have a more controlled linear charging of the batteries rather than these spikes randomly when these loads are getting turned on and off when the batteries are almost full. So you're actually getting a voltage spike, which can obviously cause degradation of cells and all sorts of things. So
now this DC coupling and the response time, that must have some interesting ramifications for the whole FCAS and arbitrage stuff. We'll talk about that later because I want to hear what you got to say about that. The AERL have been around for a long time. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're maximum power point trackers were used in race cars in the early days. Is that
been used in all sorts of stuff? I mean, they invented the technology back in the 80s.
Wow.
They invented maximum power point tracking technology, and that was invented by Peter Watkinson's dad, Stuart Watkinson. And, sadly, he passed away in the early 2000s. But they invented the technology and patented it for 10 years or so. It's sort of, I guess it was good because they had ownership of it. They sold a lot of their maximum power point trackers globally. But it probably stifled the industry a little bit because inverter brands couldn't really embrace the technology until it became off patent. And then they, of course, implement that into their grid connect inverters, and away we go. So then the invention of the maximum power point tracking technology allowed systems to yield an extra 30% more energy.
Yeah, right.
And we're talking about when solar panels were $20 a watt.
So, that was a little bit before mine. I remember $10, but I know you're
$20 or $30 a watt.
Right.
No, that was a huge cost savings for a system. So, and it was just using smart switching technology, really.
Yeah, wow. So that's really interesting. But I did notice, I went on the website, that you do have the option of AC coupling as well. Is that correct? You can have both? It
depends on with our batteries, how you work. So our batteries don't just work with our XS1. So we have a complete solution, which is with our XS ion batteries and our XS1 inverter. That's a DC coupled centric system for off-grid applications or UPS applications. But our batteries can also operate with other brands of inverters as well, be that your Selectronic, who can DC couple and AC couple, your Day, Solace, Victron, SMA Sunny Islands.
Right.
So those sorts of brands. So if you're using our XS ion battery in that environment, yes, we can be AC coupled in with the technologies that the other inverters work with.
That must be interesting from a marketing perspective, because you're talking about almost two distinct markets. The market where, hey, I've got these batteries and they can go with your inverters, as opposed to I've got this system that you buy outright. That must be an interesting one from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, where do you put your eggs? Where do you push your marketing?
That's what I was implying. Yeah.
So the strategy it was to try and be everything to everybody with a level of control. So we have a system where we can control the outcome. So that's the XS1, XS ion environment. So you have one place for support, one place for supply, and we understand the whole architecture properly. You can remote monitor it. We can assist you with it and all those sorts of things.
This is very important.
So it was the one place company to come to. Then when you look at the traditional off-grid market in Australia, myself and some of the guys in the team, we have a lot of experience in that off-grid space because we've been in it for quite a number of years.
Yes, you have.
So we do understand these other brands like your Selectronic, your SMA, and your Victrons. So it was, why do we want to lock ourselves out of those markets? Because those brands don't have their own batteries and they need a battery to go with it. So we decided to empower that side of it. And naturally, that included another few brands as well, like your Day and your Solace, who have a bit more of an open source for managed or self-managed varieties. So there's 5 other brands all of a sudden that we can work for.
Wow, that's smart. It makes perfect sense to me. Now, the lithium, we haven't talked about the actual lithium chemistry that you're using. I assume, like most people, it seems to be a lithium iron phosphate chemistry. Is that correct? Yeah. And that, did you choose that for the obvious reason of that being, at this point in time, the most safest lithium chemistry? Or was there other criteria that you used?
Business doesn't work if you're not cost effective. Business doesn't work if you can't get supply. And business doesn't work if your perception of your product isn't safe. And LFP ticks all of those. So LFP is the most commercialized product technology out there for battery storage for lithium technology. It's on its 15th year, if not longer, in cell technology. So therefore, it's proven, it's done its runs, it's proven itself. You're starting to see technology now where they understand how the lithium technology works and how it ages, and they've changed the chemicals in them slightly to get more life expectancy out of them.
Right.
And we just chose the technology based on those 3 things. LFP is inherently safe as long as your algorithms control it correctly. And
you're talking about the battery management system?
Yeah, battery management system to be able to control you're not really controlling the safety anymore. You're controlling the longevity of the cells.
Right.
So how do you charge and discharge? When do you allow them to operate and those sorts of things? Not LFP will spectacularly. If you've got energy stored in it, 100% state of charge, you decide to do something nasty to it, of course it's going to fizzle and smoke and carry on because that energy's got to go somewhere.
That's it.
But it's not inherently unsafe like your cobalt-based technologies, where we all know cobalt generates oxygen when it gets hot and when it burns, so therefore it exacerbates the fire, and you have spectacular thermal runaways and those sorts of things. So.
This is the thing. I mean, a lot of people in the early days say, it's not as energy dense, but who cares? You do not need the energy density in a energy storage system that you require for a phone.
Stationary applications.
Absolutely. And personally, and I think a lot of people agree with this in the industry, it's safety first. I mean, people forget that batteries, there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy in a battery, and people don't realize that that how much energy is actually contained within these batteries. So you'd be silly to go down the road, I think, of something that's not the absolute safest.
Yeah, and look, there's lots of different ways to put safety in batteries. There's lots of different brands out there that do it differently. So with our XESS ion battery, of course, you have your BMS, which does all the watching, what's got to do for its individual battery. So our batteries can be used in a managed application where the communications are daisy chained and it plugs into the inverter, and the inverter now listens to the battery. So the battery says, give me 54 volts and 10 amps. That's all you can give me. And if the inverter can supply 54 volts and 10 amps, it will supply it, but it won't go over that. And the battery may turn around and say, turn off. I don't stop discharging. So it stops, or if that doesn't stop, the battery stops. So it's called a managed environment. It's usually through CAN bus or Modbus protocols. And that's the battery in control of how it's being used. And that's for a safety side of things. We want it to last long. We don't want it to be over discharged, don't want it to be overcharged, because then that's when things go wrong. Then you have a self-managed environment where that's like your traditional lead acid. So you'd program an inverter to charge and discharge that battery based on your set of instructions on how it can do it. The batteries, you're a little bit out of control over a managed side, because the managed side with a lithium-ion battery, it's not just a constant, this is what I want and what I need. It changes based on temperature and all those sorts of things to try and maximize life. When you have a self-managed environment, you have a couple of benefits, but not a huge amount. But the benefit is you don't have no communication cable. So if communications are lost, batteries still operate. So there's no loss of systems. You have a high level of redundancy. But the battery can be used outside its, specified requirements at certain temperatures, which is not a big thing. It just means the battery's probably not going to last as long over time, because it's going to degrade if it's being used when the battery's hot. It wants to be discharged less, but the inverter may be discharging it more. So there's those sorts of things. And as a self-managed environment, so managed and self-managed, what we decided to do with the XSIM was to try to incorporate both those technologies together.
Wow.
So our battery can be used in a managed and a self-managed environment. And
what's the hierarchy for priority?
For priority, so managed is the priority.
Yeah, right.
So it's excuse me. Managed is the
Sorry.
Told you I was going to hit it at some stage.
Did say that.
Talk with my hands. Managed is the priority. So when it comes out the box, it's in a managed environment. So you daytime your communications, plug it into the inverter, and it tries to communicate with the inverter, and away it goes, and that's the priority. If that communication is lost between the inverter and the battery, they automatically drop in a self-managed environment. They would still be able to operate as long as the inverter can draw the energy and charge them still. Without the communication, they'll still be able to operate.
Are you the only battery company that has that approach?
Don't know. There might be a couple out there.
Yeah, because I haven't heard this before.
And we did it for a high level of redundancy, and that was more to do with our XS1 package when we're talking about redundancy. So if our batteries are in a managed environment with, say, a Victron, an SMA, a Day, or a Solace, if the communications are lost with those brands, the system will shut down because they're looking for a communication cable.
Right.
The system will shut down. However, with our XS1, it's a managed environment.
Yeah, right.
But if communications are lost, the inverter goes into voltage control mode, monitoring the voltage of the batteries. It knows all its preset settings. The batteries still operate and we still operate. You just get an alarm. Just get an alarm saying, hey, comms are lost. You might want to go check it out at some stage. And that's all you get.
This is a no-brainer. I'm surprised. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It really makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
It seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, when I looked at the website, you seem to be focusing on the remote area off-grid market. Is that a correct assessment? Or
Yes and no. Yes, definitely. So our experience and our strengths are in the off-grid space, the personnel in the business. So we're playing to our strengths. So we definitely, off-grid is where probably 80% of our business goes into at the moment.
Wow.
And then probably the other 20% goes into on-grid applications with your likes of Day and Solace inverters at the moment.
Right. Excellent. Do you think, and I asked this question, do you think when batteries, and invariably they'll drop in price because everything seems to be, there'll be a certain point where they don't. Do you think people will, the general public who are already connected to the grid, start maybe entertaining the idea of going completely off grid? Or is it more of a case that they go, oh no, we'll be part of a VPP, or no, we'll always have the grid because otherwise we'll need a fossil fuel component being a gen set, blah, blah, blah. I have a romantic idea that people will do it, but I think I'm totally unrealistic.
Yeah, I think policies are probably going to stop you doing that. So I believe that if the grid runs past your property in a lot of places, you should remain connected.
Okay.
But if you don't pay your power bill, they're just going to disconnect you anyway. So I guess there's ways around it, but I don't know. I think that the romantic idea is that you can go off grid and you can be self-sufficient. But we all know if you've got a high power using property where you may have a pool and ducted air conditioning, it's quite easy on a summer's day to use 85 kilowatt hour per day, if not more. So it's quite a substantial system you're going to have.
No, you're right. Look, on the note of the whole paying for services, if you've got, say, water running past your property and you've got tank, you'll pay the service charge, sewage as well. But it's different with electricity in Victoria because you've actually got a contract with the retailer, not the distributor. Yeah. So technically you can go, hey, I'm moving out, send me the last bill and go and get
turn off
and get Trent. We both know Trent Lake, Trent Mayor from Trent Lake, come and go. We haven't done that at our place yet, by the way. But I'd like to do it. We're chatting with Craig here. This is having a lot of fun, but don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel and, of course, Greenwood Academy. We'll get back into it. I really want to go back to what we were saying before about, I mentioned about the fact that you're concentrating on the remote area, off-grid kind of environment, with not as much focus on the on-grid. And I'd like you to explain to me exactly what you said off camera about the ability to service people from a company perspective. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, look, when you start a business or a business, at a certain point in time, you have a roadmap and you've got to be able to service that roadmap. And if you can't service that roadmap, no matter how much your expectation is for profit and growth, if you can't service that roadmap, you're not going to get anywhere. So our business has a high level of strength in the off-grid space. We have a high level of expertise in batteries and inverters for that space as well, and understanding the customer's needs and wants and how you've got to support them. So we put a heavy amount of focus in the off-grid space is where we've put it in the first 3 years of business. That's given us the ability to grow at a steady rate, not get caught up in massive rebate schemes that grow you to a point where you may not be able to service your customers.
Wow.
So it's very important that you can service your customers and service them with an ability that they trust, and also, I guess, believe in your opinion as a company, so that they feel like they're supported correctly. So
it sounds to me that you're not just saying these words. This is what you truly believe. Is that something that you, when you in your previous, when you were employed, is that something that you always tried to follow through with the companies you were working for?
Definitely. You've got to, people buy off you for a couple of reasons. It's either you've got a product and everybody wants it, Apple, iPhone, whatever it is. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are. If you're probably the cheapest price or you can get them a good deal, they're going to buy it off you. But in this industry, it's a bit different. People want service and support. And service and support doesn't come with having a product that's flashy and great and all those sorts of things. So it's good if it is flashy and great, like our product, of course, and everybody else's. But it's about that trust in being able to service the customer. So trust is one of the biggest things in any business, and it's hard to earn trust in a customer, but it's very, very easy to lose. So they need to be able to trust that you are there when they need them, that you can support them when they need them. You may not have all the right answers, and it may not be 100% what they want to hear all the time, but the trust that you've tried your hardest as a business or as a person to be able to deliver in the expectation of support that they need.
That's really well said. I think following on from that, it too is the issue that a lot of people, a lot of businesses, they get complacent when they get customers. And they forget how hard it was to actually get those customers in the first place. Is that something that you...
Yeah, definitely. You see it as customers, when a business gets to a certain size, so it doesn't matter how many years that is, but they won't get to a certain size, there's always pressures of financial pressures, can't afford to hire here, got to do cutbacks here, competition's higher, prices are dropping, margins are dropping, and all those sorts of things. And you'll probably find that in those times you're trying to get more sales, you're trying to get more customers, and the way that companies perceive you get those to have more BDMs or do harder at sales, and support gets forgotten. It either gets cut back in it, or it's struggles a little bit in those sorts of side of things. And that's not to bag companies that are, that have been in the industry a long time and maybe still just be struggling with support. Sometimes that is due because the amount of product they've got out there as well.
Yes.
So if you have a lot of product out there over generations or years of side of it, you've still got to be able to support those products.
Wow.
So
yeah,
there's lots of brands out there, and I'll just name a few: Selectronic, Fronius. That's just probably name two. They've got crap loads of products out there at the moment, and they've got to be able to service that as well. So if you're selling at a rapid rate because growth is your plan and margin is your plan, and you're pummeling this product into the market and you've got all of this, you've still got to support. Your support problem is not going to get better, it's actually going to get worse. So you've got to try and balance that somehow. I don't know the answers because everybody has issues in the support side of things, but it's got to be at a forefront of every conversation you have. If you have a new product, how are we going to support it? If you have a new partnership program, how are we going to support it? If we're going to have a new freight company, how well does that support you? Those sorts of side of things. It's got to be a massive part of your conversations you have internally in a business.
Wow. I mean, I've never heard anyone else put it quite as succinctly as you have, and it's really refreshing. And I think anyone listening who is involved in renewables and looking to purchase a complete system or energy storage should definitely have a look at your offering. And I don't ever say that actually, but I'm pretty damn impressed. And the interview, the conversation's ongoing. Now, we're talking off camera too about the size of these systems. What's the upper kind of storage capacity offered by XES. Oh,
XESS.
it is XS. I
XS,
keep on
yes.
thinking it is, and
So-
I go, there's something wrong in my head. I know you said it before.
Yeah. So when we were
XS, yes.
when we were doing the business and we started the business, XS was the abbreviation. So it was originally registered as X Energy Storage Solutions.
Right.
However, that's a big tangle twister for me, and it's also that's what we are is XS. So we had a look at trademarks and registrations around just XS, because how do you say this? Everybody was calling us XESS. Some people were calling us all sorts of things. So we had to try and standardise it. So XS is what we standardised on. We ended up changing the registration of the business to XS Energy. Right. So energy is the last part, of course, because you have to be so about some things. XS Energy is the name of the business.
As long as they don't call you late for dinner.
That's
Sorry,
right.
that's a dad joke. My daughter will be cringing, but she doesn't listen to this, but she hates that.
It's usually the kids are late to dinner anyway.
That's true. That's true. So the upper size.
The upper size.
Yeah, and what kind of market are we talking? Like, are we talking about the big cattle stations? What are we talking about with these big ass systems?
I guess in the off-grid space, the big sort of things, you are talking about cattle stations, you are talking about roadhouses, you are talking about any sort of off-grid place. It could be a little gas refinery or sensors along on the things, railway tracks, anywhere. Like there's those sorts of things that are spread out across the whole country. The upper limit of the XS ion battery as it is at the moment is around the 450 kilowatt hours in one solution, in a
fair
sense.
whack, yeah.
So it's quite large. And then that coupled with the XS1 gives us the ability. The XS1 in its largest format is 9.2 kilowatts of AC output, and you can have up to 12 of those connected.
Yeah, wow.
So that gives you up around 120 kilowatts of AC output is where you can go with that.
Right.
And then your world is your oyster on the amount of PV you want to put on it. We're all DC coupled. That's one thing to remember.
That's the thing, isn't it? Now, just explain to the people the difference. Like, not everyone listening will know the difference between AC coupled and DC coupled. Just can maybe the basics of the two.
I guess the difference is when you talk about an AC coupled environment, the solar is connected to what you'll class as your traditional grid connect inverter, which converts the solar energy, which is DC, to AC, into AC energy to power your loads. So AC coupled is when the battery inverter looks at what's going on with that AC energy out of that inverter and then uses that to charge the battery. So it brings the AC back through itself, converts it to DC to charge the battery. So that's your AC coupled. So the AC inverter is coupled on the AC side of the battery inverter for charging of that battery. And the solar's on this. So solar, battery and solar, two AC inverters, I guess, sort of side of things, and the solar is flowing back through to the battery. DC coupled is when the PV is directly connected to the battery via a DC MPPT. So it's on the DC side. It's not actually going through the battery inverter at all. It's on the side of it, in a sense, controlling how it's charging the batteries independently of what the battery inverter is doing.
And the kind of maximum power point tracker that you use, the AERL, what kind of string voltages
up to 600 volts.
Yeah, so this is classic. What any installer worth their salt who's done anything in the renewable energy area knows these kind of voltages. They know these kind of string voltages, because I know in the early days, way back when, those maximum power point trackers were, if it was going to a 48 volt, they'd be maybe 100 volt or whatever, but. And they obviously involved a lot thicker cabling.
String fusing.
Yeah, exactly. But now it's like someone with the basic grid connect training would go, hey, I understand that.
Yep. That's why AC coupling really took off in off-grid space
That's
over
exactly
the years.
Right.
Was because you can go higher voltage, there was less string fusing, thinner cables, all those sorts of things. And we see it happening now in battery storage.
Yes.
Traditionally it was 12 volts, then it was 24, then it went to 32, then it went to 48, and now we're seeing, high voltage. And we've seen that now for probably the last 8 to 10 years, high voltage really coming in, but it's coming in a big way now, where it's almost, why are you still doing 48 volts, or why are you still doing, why aren't you doing high voltage?
Yes.
And look, it's horses for courses in that regards. In what we use, we chose to stick with a 48 volt technology architecture on ours, because that's where we're strong at the moment. So we stuck with a 48 volt architecture, and then it gave us the ability, like I said before, to work with other brands as well as just our own.
Yeah.
When you look at the high voltage side of things, usually it's the same brand that couple with each other,
Correct,
except for a
correct.
few. So
Yes.
it would be this brand of inverter and that brand of and the same brand of battery that couple together. So
Yeah.
it would close our market off, really going
Absolutely.
to a HV than where we are at the moment.
That makes perfect sense. So, can you just sort of outline, I suppose, the classic question? I'm an installer and I'm looking at all these different batteries out there. Why would I have a look at? Why would I go to XESS and go? Yeah, I'm gonna pick their battery. Sorry, I didn't really explain that.
That's all right.
That wasn't really pretty the way I explained that. I was
Why would
stammering
you
like
buy
a
an
maniac.
XS ion battery?
Thank you. Can you answer that question?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, we're an Australian company. We're based here. We have an office in Brisbane. We have people based in Victoria. We're a committed company to the Australian market. The actual product itself, it's a modular product, so it comes in about 5.12 kilowatt hour module.
Right.
It's rack mount.
That must
so-
be pretty easy to handle,
yeah,
weight-wise.
about 43 kilos each.
Yeah, right. That's
Yep.
fine.
And we're the traditional rack mount style, so you have your separate cabinets, but we have everything from a 4 battery cabinet to a 10 battery cabinet, and you slot them in. The key benefits, I guess, massive benefits of our brand is the fact that we have managed and self-managed applications, so we can be used as a lead acid replacement, or we can be used like a traditional.
Really?
Yeah,
With
so
the lead acid, you can
Yeah, so-
direct replacement.
correct. Yeah, so if it's when you class as self-managed, it means that you program the charging device to charge your battery, and as long as it can be customized to match our profile, 54.6 volts, no more than 100 amps sort of thing, and have a bit of temperature compensation or something like that, then essentially you can be programmed to charge our batteries. So it's great for those applications where you don't want to throw out the PCE or the electronics components that are in the system.
Yes.
And the bigger benefit, I guess, is the level of redundancy and protection that we have in ours. So we have in a managed variety, I mentioned before, with all the communications daisy chaining through
Yep.
and away it goes. In a self-managed application, you can choose to use the batteries independently of themselves. So
Wow.
they can be all independent, operating independently, so they no communications between any of the batteries. So that's a self-managed application. But we also offer what we class as advanced cluster control technology in the self-managed as well. So if you
Can
wanted
you repeat that?
advanced cluster control. So what we do is we operate the self-managed battery in a cluster. So rather than having them not talking to each other, we can actually run the communications cables between the batteries, and one becomes the master and watches what the rest of them do.
Wow.
So if for some reason one of them's not playing ball and it looks like it's supposed to be maybe pulling itself out or not doing what it's doing, the master can actually trip it out. So it's an electronic,
just bypass it.
yeah,
Wow.
has an electronic trip breaker in it, so it can force it to trip that breaker. Or even the batteries independently themselves, we have a BMS which controls what's going on with the cells, but then we also have a watchdog inside each independent battery as well, which is watching what the BMS is doing. And if that as well sees that it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, it can electronically trip the brake and pull it out the circuit. So it's a high level of flexibility in how you want to install it, as well as at the same time a high level of protection for making sure the batteries are working and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Really interesting, Craig. I had a cursory look, as I mentioned, off camera at the website before you came on. After this, I'm going to go back and go right through it. I have a jolly good look. And as mentioned, a mate of mine, Trent, who's been on this, he's one of the early podcasts. He's been using your batteries and is pretty damn happy. So, and the fact that he's given the thumbs up is pretty good. Now, we can't talk about batteries. We can't talk about energy storage batteries without talking about, seems to be the flavour of the month, the whole FCAS and arbitrage. I'd like to hear your views on what that means to you. Is that something that you're looking at down the track for bigger batteries? Are you bringing bigger batteries in for that market? Just a bit of a rundown.
We have a lot of products in the pipeline that will come out over the next 12 to 18 months. Part of my trip to China might be something to do with that side of it. But yeah, we have, at the moment, like I said, we target the off-grid predominantly market, but we have a lot of stuff coming for on-grid and potentially small CNI, not large CNI. That's not something we want to get into at this stage. What do I think about that market?
Yeah, I really want to, yeah.
Of course, there's money involved in it at the moment because there's not a huge amount of players in that space in regards to people playing in that market, discharging and recharging their batteries to help with frequency or to help with, I guess, demand on the network. The whole world's talking about VPP, or the whole Australia's talking about VPP.
Yeah.
We have a battery rebate tied up around VPPs, so you have to have VPP compliant. It might be good if you like playing the stock market and you want to jump on Amber or something like that. You want to watch what's going on and stuff like
It's
that.
speculative is what you're saying. This is the thing, isn't it?
Is it? Do I think it's a big thing? It's great to talk about. I have not seen people making serious money out of it yet. My question is there's two double-edged swords, I think it is, which way it goes. As more players come onto the market that are playing in VPPs or in FCAS and arbitrage markets, there's going to be less piece of the pie, so the price potentially can go down. So therefore the attraction for that side of it might not be as great. But then we've got lots of EVs coming out on the market, so they're going to need to charge.
That's what I was
they're
going to
need to
mention about.
So that's going to put more demand on the market on there at the same time. But at the same time, it's supposed to stabilise the network, is what they're saying. It's not supposed to put demand on it. It's supposed to stabilise the network. So the question is how long is the price going to be at a rate where it's attractive for people to keep doing? Don't know. We've been talking about VPP and those sorts of things for 20 years.
Wow.
And let's see how it goes over the next 10 or 15 years, I guess. I know that...
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you throw in the AI data centres too, like from a load on the system perspective as well, and that's happening. And let's face it, the uptake of EVs has been fairly slow in Australia compared to, say, in Europe, but we know these things don't happen at a linear rate. Once they gain traction, it's like whoosh, it's logarithmic or whatever that particular. I'll draw it like that. I'll draw it opposite like that. So there's going to be a crap load of demand on the actual system, let alone people starting to talking about EV, a vehicle to grid kind of stuff. I don't know. I think it seems there's a lot of talk, and I think some people are trying to work this stuff out, but there doesn't seem to be. It seems it's in its infancy.
Definitely.
And I think it's a sit and wait and see what happens.
I've never understood. So EVs don't have a huge amount of resale value once they get to 7 or 8 years when you want to get rid of them. They really combustion motor and ICE motor is basically holds a little more value depending on the brand and those sorts of side of it. So why would you use your EV to discharge into the network and
degrade the
battery further, even quicker?
That's a really good point.
Into the resale market. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. So that's just my opinion on it.
I've never heard anyone say that, but you're 100% right. Why would people do that? People can't even sell their second-hand Teslas now. They don't even bother. They just keep them now because they can't sell them.
I think the people that probably would do vehicle to grid are people that probably don't have the space in their city home to put a battery storage and might want to take advantage of being self-sufficient in blackouts or use the energy that they may have charged up at work at home. So at home, I plug it at work and they give me free energy and I'm going to use it at home. So that may be a market that people would use. But if you're in the suburbs and you can put a stationary battery storage system in and those sorts of things, I don't see
I agree. I personally think these things should be separate. There should be your EV battery for your bloody car, and then there should be that home storage system, because the interface between the two, there's some potential safety issues there as well. It's a weird one. It's all really, really fascinating. Now, the remote area power supplies, or RAPs, or S as they used to be called, standalone. That's right, RAPs and SAPs. Are you just restricting to Australia? Because obviously you're looking at Fiji. We're looking at a lot of other countries that have have 400 volt nominal, etc., as in their grid, but they're all also requiring a lot of off grid to try to get away from diesel from a greenhouse gas perspective. Are you looking to move into some, like Fiji, for instance? That seems to be one that a lot of people are doing off grid stuff there.
I have plans to take over the world. No, not take over the world, but we have to have. We can't be narrow-minded and just stay with Australia. It's a market that you get caught in the fluctuations in the solar coaster, as they call it, or the ups and downs, because our market is very responsive to government handouts and not handouts. I wish they would stop handing money out and actually just leave it be.
Yes.
But there's handouts and they take it back and they retract it, so it keeps them going all over the place. Excuse me. So, yes, we are looking at other markets. We already have a distributor in France that's selling our product into the French into France.
Well, that's big.
We're looking at places like New Zealand and other places as well, but we're looking for the right partners that can support us and support the product.
Yeah.
We're not looking at just running out there and selling it to every man and his dog.
Yeah.
And
It's
those
not
sorts
like
of things.
selling a panel, is it?
Yeah. So at the moment, with our brand in Australia, you can purchase the product directly off us. So we act as the distributor or the wholesaler of the product as well into the installer network.
That's good. So you got a bit more control.
Got control. Yeah, you got
yeah.
control. So you know who you're selling to.
Yes.
You know what their capabilities are. You know if you want to sell to them or not, and those sorts of things as well. So you have a high level of control, because if you don't have control over who's selling your product or how you're training your customers with those products, or the expectation that the consumer is going to get, you can end up with a bad experience. So we've got to make sure that we can control it all the way through.
How important is the training of the installers or training of the customers to use your product? Is that something that you...
It's very easy to use. It's plug and play. Even
Right.
the XS one, it's very, very easy.
Right.
Training that we've done has been over the phone, talking to people and those sorts of things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's not a high level of training. We plan on ramping that up towards the middle to the end of this year, where we'll do proper training roadshows and those sorts of things to
that
really
makes
get it out
sense.
there.
Yeah.
But it's really just plug and play. It's bolt it on the wall, slot everything in, connect to the Wi-Fi app in a sense, and you've got 5 questions to answer for programming. With the batteries, it's even easier. It's just plug and play and away you go.
That is something that would be music to a lot of installers' ears, because we were talking about it off camera, the loyalty factor. People not so loyal to panels. Tier 1, as long as it's a good quality panel, they don't care. They'll swap and change based on the price per watt. Inverters and those kind of systems, inverter chargers and those kind of systems, they're a little bit more loyal. So it's important that that whatever products that people are looking at is credible and has that backup, which obviously XESS does. And I said it straight away, but it's still throwing me off because I'm looking at your T-shirt and I'm going. There was even a hesitation, but I like the T-shirt, by the way. It's a good T-shirt, very cool. You've been involved in this industry longer than me, which is quite weird, because usually I'm the one who goes, yes, my first job was Queen Vic Market 2003 or Monkey on the Roof with panels, those BP laminate panels that weighed a ton that we using Glazier's suction cups. But you've seen massive changes, right? You mentioned before $20 a watt. I remember when they were $10 a watt panels. Here, $20 a watt, $20 to $30 a watt. What has been a constant throughout these 20 years for you in this industry, or has there been one?
What's been a constant?
Yeah.
Change. Change.
Yeah,
It changes every 6 months. So if it's not influenced by the industry itself, with flooding of brands on the market, so all of a sudden you have 4,000 solar panels on the market, and we're seeing at the moment we have brands and brands and brands of batteries flooding onto the market, usually driven by some government rebate or incentive, or and away you go. Then it's just change all the time. There's changes in product, so from 12, 24, 48 HV solar panels going to higher voltage and more commercial size. I mean, we did a system, put some solar panels on my property in Central Victoria the other day, and I used some TW panels, and they're slightly lighter than a lot of the other brands that are that size.
Wow.
And I got thanked by Matt Wilson, the installer. Going, thank you for getting light solar panels. These are a bliss on a 38-degree day, lifting them up on the roof. So there's just a constant change in this industry. If it's not technology change, it's change in demand, change in people's approach to the market. And the biggest thing that I guess is that where we've come from system quality. They were what we considered good quality 15 years ago.
You're being careful now.
15 years ago
the look on your face.
is probably in the ugly basket now. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Like the aesthetics are playing a role, whether it's off-grid systems or on-grid. People want, they don't want to see ugly batteries and stuff. No. They want this sleek, modular, slimline, what have you, rack mount, they want things to look nice.
appearance is a big thing these days.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time on the XS1, and the branding of our brand to actually give it appeal, and actually people want to have it, and people are happy when it's installed, and they think it looks good. So aesthetics is a massive part of the market now, when it didn't used to be. It used to be tucked away in the off-grid, back in the old shed sort of thing, in the corner.
Remember when Lindsay said about that particular iteration of the SP Pro that it had fallen out of the tree, hit by the ugly stick. That
the Series 1 SP Pro.
Right. Yeah. And but hey, the product worked well, but it looked like poo. It really did. No, but I mean the thing is, we are visual beasts, and these things do have to play a role. There's form and function. Now, I haven't asked you about this, like the mining industry. A lot of off-grid stuff going on there. Is that a market that you're looking at or you've sold into? Or
definitely something that we look at. We don't. We're very strategic in how we're targeting people at the moment. We don't want to take off more than we can chew. There's no point, not being able to service your client. Mining is generally serviced by their normal sorts of clients and their supply markets. So you've got to be able to service that through them. ARL plays in that space. XESS is really driven by the installer market and the residential, domestic and commercial market. Not to say we don't play in those markets when that opportunity comes away, but ARL, our sister company, really targets that sort of mining and industrial sort of market with their applications and their partnerships that they form.
What about, there's a lot of Aboriginal communities out there.
Yeah, definitely.
And a lot of their systems are coming to the end of their life.
Bushlight program.
I was just thinking Bushlight is definitely Bushlight. So is that some of the installers you're dealing with, are they doing some of these kind of projects?
We talk to people that are doing those sorts of projects and that side of it. It's those projects are usually long-winded. It's not something that you sort of go in and they're using this brand and you say, hey, use our brand, and you convince them. They've really got to sort of go, well, we have these projects on the go. They're already sort of designed up. We've now designed them. So it's more of a commercial aspect sort of thing. They're not like your mum and dad's installer company. They're not commercial focused.
Look, you're right. You're dead right. Plus, but I mean, they would be your system
highly suited to it.
I mean, we're talking about some extreme temperatures, and it seems to me that if your system's being able to cope with these remote area, these off-grid systems, these extreme temperatures, once the fact that they can do that means when you do, or if you do transition to that more grid connect market, and as you slowly add, it's a piece of piss. So that's a horrible expression. I'll rephrase that. They've proved themselves in the most extreme environments, being flogged. What's grid connect? That's nothing compared to
grid connect is nothing, as you sort of say. I find that though off-grid systems, they may be flogged harder in that sort of term, as in like for power and demand. But they're usually put in a nice environment, in a insulated shed, or in a shed, or in an environment that is controlled, maybe air conditioning, because more money's being spent on the system, and those sorts of it. When you come to domestic applications, it's usually wherever they've got room to put it. So you see lots of pictures of
west-facing wall,
northerly facing wall with a Bunnings shade sail thing over the top or something like that. And I'm not saying that that's not a neat install or a compliant install, but you're really putting it in some of the harshest environments. And I know that people's garages aren't somewhere where you can always put things. My system's in my garage because I have an area on the side that's, I can use that area to put my power system in. But I think that in domestic applications, they probably not get pushed as hard, but they get put in some of the most demanding environments. So on the side of my house, if I chose the side of my house, which is a northerly facing, which is where everybody's put all their service stuff there, my air conditioner's there, my pool pump's there, my heater's there, my gas burner. If I put that down there, that's the most hottest part of my not just because of the sun, but because of all of those heat pumps pumping out hot air, or in that environment.
And let's say batteries like what humans like. They like between 18 and 23 degrees.
That's right.
That's the thing where they're at their optimum. So in regards to, is there any caveats with the warranty on the batteries in regards to how long they last or cycle life? And I always ask this question because
so we warrant one cycle a day. that's what we warrant it as.
Yep.
So there's 365 times 10, so it's 10-year warranty. 7-year standard, register it with us, you get the 10, so it's a 10-year warranty.
Oh, wow.
So it's an implied 10-year warranty anyway. That's what we warrant on the batteries. Temperature, within our operating temperature range, which is, don't quote me, check the specs, I think it's 10 to 45 degrees is where we're happy to operate in.
Wow.
We will operate down as low as minus 10 to 55 degrees.
Really?
But we don't want that to be in that temperature all the time. That's talking about your extreme sorts of side of things. Preferably, a system should be put in some sort of controlled environment.
I think
southerly side or indoors if you can.
That applies to every battery system, really, doesn't it?
Yep.
Let's face it, and it's quite disturbing when you see people. We've done some audits, and you see batteries on the west facing in Melbourne. I mean, crikey, we hit 44 degrees the other day. Can you imagine what I'd be doing to the batteries?
Full sun. It's 44 degrees in the shade. Imagine what that's like in full sun.
I know. It's quite scary, and I always say, just think of the batteries as a human being that you don't want to torture, and try to get put in a nice environment where it's going to be quite stable. And I mean, and then I always use the example of I lived in Darwin for a short time, and I mean, gosh, batteries lasted there 2 years max, maybe 3 years if you were lucky. But down here, I had a battery go for 7 years in my car. In my car because of that temperature. So it's really important to treat them with respect. And I like the idea. I like what you said. If you a dedicated room that they can go with correct ventilation, maintain that thermal stability, the whole bit is a wonderful thing.
Look, it's not as practical either. So it's only in off-grid, it's only practical for probably 30 to 50% of systems that can be done like that anyway.
Yeah.
Then you've got a garden shed that they may have that's not insulated and stuff like that. So is that worse or not? I don't know.
It's a really good question.
Yeah. So, but we have a sort of rule with ours. We have white and black products. So black means it's indoor.
Right.
So white can go outdoors.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So we still prefer outdoors in the shade, of course, not in full sun.
Of course.
But we can't restrict. We don't know where they go half the time. But yes, that's how we try and work it.
That's the thing, isn't it? After you've sold the product, you can't fully guarantee that they're going to be put in the ideal situation, and that's something that, I mean, what can you do?
That's why you have warranties and manuals,
Absolutely.
so that if you do have problems down the track, and most manufacturers are very, very loyal, very honest, and should I say, they will usually honour things outside of warranty terms. So even if it's installed in the shittest situation, generally speaking, most manufacturers will assist in some way, shape or form when they probably don't need to because it has been installed. But it's generally not the consumer's fault that it's been installed in that situation.
No.
So who are you trying to, like, you can be pissed at the installer, but then you're pissing off the consumer. So you've got to try and balance that, the consumer experience as well as the installer experience at the same time. So that's where training is important. But I think that if people are in this industry and don't know that inverters and batteries should not be installed in full sun.
Maybe they all right, yeah, we'll leave that unsaid. All right, final words. Where do you think you'll be, or what are your plans for like 2 years' time? Where do you want to be company-wise? Is there any sort of plans that you've got, I really want to achieve this within 2 years, something?
Look, we don't have goals as in we have our goals and our product roadmaps and those sorts of things. There's no massive achievements we want except for keep on doing what we're doing but on a larger scale. So keep on bringing on new customers, keep on bringing on new products that are suitable and relevant for the market, and keep on being innovative in ways that we can help the installer. So there's lots of installers that may be very good at installing but not very good at selling, may not be very good at paperwork and all those sorts of things. And there's lots of services out there to assist them with those side of things, but it's how can we add a value in that space at the same time to assist them in what it is that they need. So it could be faster freight, it could be just-in-time freight. I don't know. There's all those things. So there's all these things that we're looking at the moment, and what is the benefit that we can offer the installer to make things easier for themselves?
It's such a hard question, isn't it? Because you could say faster freight is of a benefit, but for all the effort to achieve that, it may be negligible gains.
Yes, right.
And it's that cost benefit analysis that we all seem to do if we do follow a process and procedure. Some natural nature, and some learned.
One thing we probably will have over the next 2 years, I think we'll have a warehouse and office in Melbourne as well. So
Oh,
at the moment we've
excellent.
got one in Brisbane, we'll have one, and we've got 3PL in Sydney, so we'll most likely have an office down in Melbourne. I need somewhere to call home, so I'm based in Melbourne.
I know. So if anyone wants to contact, what's the best way to contact the company if there's installers out there listening and going, my gosh, I really like what Craig has said about this and the conversation we've had. What's the best way? Get on the website?
Jump on the website, www.xess.energy. No .com, no .au, it's just www.xess.energy.
Wow.
Jump
cool.
on there, have a look around. There's lots of ways to contact us. We have a 1-800 number if you want to phone us. There's the email via the sales@xess.energy you can phone us on. If you've got my phone number, give me a call. If you've got Matthew Rice's phone number, one of our BDMs, give him a call because I'm sure he's liking my shout out to him at the moment because he owes me a beer because that's the first time I've mentioned his name.
That's good. Is there anyone else you'd like to mention apart from Matthew?
You got Peter Watkinson as well. He's been a massive fundamental part. Without the likes of ARL for their technical background and the technical expertise, so that's how they support XESS. So they support us with the manufacturing of the XS1, which we do locally up in Brisbane. They supply us with technical products and know-how, and they support us 100% in the country. Companies in the country, sorry. So they're a great brand to be aligned with.
Mate, thanks very much. I know what's going to happen because as soon as we end this conversation, I'll go, I should have asked that. I should have asked this. But you know something? There can always be a part 2. So thanks so much for coming along and chatting. I'm really looking forward to watching this particular podcast myself. And thank you again. Cheers.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, man. Thank you. That was good. That was very good.